Hello and welcome dear students. So in today's video lecture we're going to start new unit from microbial systematics, and in that we're going to cover of that unit third, and that is exploration of unculturable microbial diversity. It's the third unit, and from that we're going to see or we're going to cover most of the techniques. We have to learn most of the techniques and the concept regarding unculturable microbial community or unculturable microbial diversity. So study of unculturable microbial diversity is known as metagenomics. Okay, so if you look at the microbial diversity, it is huge and unpredictable. Okay, almost 99% of the microbial community is unrevealed. We didn't know anything about the rest of the microbes. Okay, we know whatever data today we have regarding microbiology, it's all about 1% of microbes. Okay, so 99% community is unculturable. Now the question arises, why we cannot culture these microbes in artificial condition or in laboratory condition. Okay, why most of the microbes they are resist for culturing or they are unculturable. So there are several reasons behind this thing, and the first thing is that we exactly don't know what type of nutritional requirement they prefer for their growth. Okay, we don't know what type of nutrient they prefer, what type of growth factors they require for their growth. We don't have properly designed medium for such kind of microbes for their growth. Second thing, we are unknown about what type of environmental conditions they prefer for their normal growth. Okay, environmental conditions like temperature, pH, requirement of other things. So we don't know what type of environmental conditions they prefer. Then third thing is that most of the microbes they need assistance of other microbes for their normal growth. Okay, in short, most of the microbes, those which are unculturable, they grows in community. If you want to culture them in alone, they cannot be become in culturable form, or we cannot culture them as an individual organism. So most of the microbes they require assistance of other microbes, means they can only grow in community, they can only grow in presence of other microbes, because there are some examples in which we can you can see that one of the waste product of some of the microbes, it is nutrient for other microbes. It is essential nutrient, or it provides some growth factors for other microbes. So that's why microbes need assistance of other microbes and they can only grow in community. So these are several reasons that why we cannot culture most of the microbial community. And what are the, so now again the question is that though we cannot culture them in laboratory, so how can we study them? Okay, so how can we study them? So all approaches that are used, all tools and techniques that are used to study this unculturable microbial community or unculturable microbial diversity, that approach is known as metagenomics. So this is a newly emerging field and lots of research is going on this particular area. So the study of unculturable bacterial diversity or microbial community is known as metagenomics. Okay, So basic approach for this metagenomic study is that instead of growing microbes in artificial condition or laboratory condition, their DNA, RNA can be directly isolated from environmental samples. After isolating that samples, the DNA, RNA get purified, and the sequence that reveals phylogeny, they are isolated, and after sequencing that uh, sequence data is matched with already published database. Okay, so by this way we can identify, and sometimes other genes that are useful for that are useful, they are cloned in some culturable microbial communities or some culturable microbes. So this is the basic approach. We cannot culture them, that's why we isolate their DNA, RNA from environmental samples, and after sequencing that DNA, RNA sample, we can predict phylogenetic relationship, that which type of microbes are there and what role actually they are played in that particular environment or particular ecosystem, and we can find some beneficial things, because that microbes play a very important and essential role as a part of that ecosystem, and they produces various valuable products that are of commercial importance. And after sequencing that gene or specific genes or entire genome, we can find the genes that produces that valuable products, and we can clone them in so called culturable microbes. So this is how metagenomic studies they are carried out. So this is basic approach how we can carry out metagenomic studies. So genomics is the study of entire genome. Okay, so genomics is the study of entire genome of an organism. Now genome comprises all genetic material. In case of microbes, the genetic material for microbes is chromosomal DNA plus extra chromosomal DNA. So this is how genomics and metagenomics studies they are carried out. Okay, so as per definition, metagenomics is the genomic analysis of pooled DNA or RNA from an environmental sample containing organisms that have not been isolated, same as environmental genomics. Sometimes this term is also called as environmental genomics and metagenomics. They can be used synonymously with each other. So in this approach, we carry out genomic analysis of pooled DNA and RNA directly from environmental samples without culturing them or without isolating them. So this is how metagenomic studies they are carried out. Now in this particular unit, we're going to study this unit with respect to these points. In that, first we're going to see concept of unculturable bacterial diversity, then strategies for culture of unculturable bacteria, and third, culture independent molecular methods for identifying unculturable bacteria. In that, various techniques and tools that are used to study this unrevealed microbial community. In that, PCR is there, RFLP is there, ADRA, DGG, TGG, RAPD, microarray, FISH, and RISA. So why I highlight this topic? Because in today's lecture, our main focus is on this particular topic, highlighted topic. We're going to see first these techniques and tools, because in previous lectures we have studied polyphasic approach for microbial identification, and these techniques are also a part of that particular topic. So that's why I decided to take these techniques first. So rest of the stuff will continue in coming lectures. So in this particular lecture and in coming lectures, we're going to see these techniques and some other techniques that are remain, and they are as a part of polyphasic approach we're going to study. So these are genomic based methods, as we have already discussed in polyphasic approach, but we have discussed very few techniques. So these techniques are also as a part of metagenomic study. That's why I decided to take these techniques in this particular video lecture. So in that, genomic based methods, they are purely based on genomes or DNA RNA based methods, and in that it includes DNA reassociation kinetics based methods, then restriction, fragment length, polymorphism, then TRFLV, then denaturing or temperature gradient jet electrophoresis, that is TGGE, then single strand conformation polymorphism, then PCR amplicon high length, PCR amplicon length heterogeneity, then low molecular weight RNA pattern analysis, then reverse genome probing RSGP. So the techniques mentioned here and here, all they comprises molecular based approaches that are used in metagenomic study also, and the same approaches they are also used for culturable, means these approaches are used for culturable as well as non-culturable microbes also. But majority these techniques here, they are mentioned specifically for unculturable microbial community. So in that, first we have already discussed this thing, but still we'll recapitulate these things. So DNA based approaches for accessing microbial diversity, they have relied in a part on complementary nature of double helix structure of DNA molecule and on the efficiency of hybridization between two strands from heterogeneous sources under controlled experimental condition. So the basic theme behind this DNA based method, in particular DNA reassociation kinetics, so main theme behind this technique is that the double helical structure of DNA and the complementary base pairing between the nitrogenous bases, and that base pairing is between homologous region and the hybridization. Okay, so hybridization means when two strands from different sources, they came together and they join due to homologous or homology in their base pair sequences. So when they join, so that molecule is known as hybrids. Okay, the hybridization means what? When single stranded DNA from different sources. Okay, suppose I have one DNA sample, single stranded DNA sample, and I have to identify unknown microbial community or unknown microbial microbes. So what I will do, I will isolate DNA fragments, and after isolating that DNA fragment, I will match with the DNA of known species. So it is natural property of DNA that it can, if it is in single strand form, it can join with another DNA strand having homology, or if the sequences, nucleotide sequence between these two strands is similar, they can join. Okay, we have already discussed, but still we'll recapitulate. So based on this theme, there are many variations on methodological theme of DNA hybridization as a fundamental approach for exploring microbial diversity and systematic. So basically this hybridization principle is utilized in different ways or as a basic principle in different methodologies, and based on this principle of hybridization, there are different methods that are used in microbial identification or study of microbial diversity and systematics. So for determining species identity among culturable organisms, the most straightforward strategy is whole genome hybridization with results express that percent homology between unidentified organism and one that is well characterized. So this is the basic approach that you if you have well identified microbes, then you just isolate some DNA, specific DNA molecule, and you can hybridize that DNA molecule. You can allow to other uh, single stranded DNA molecule which are extracted and isolated from unknown microbes or microbial community, and if it get hybridized, so you can conclude that the unknown microbes maybe belongs to that known microbes, or maybe belongs to that already known species. So this is how hybridization is utilized for to carry out microbial identification. So basic principle behind all these techniques that we are going to study is the hybridization. Means uh, whenever two single stranded DNA molecule they came together, if there is homology between their sequences, or they can join with each other by normal base pairing. Okay, so before going to start with the actual tools and techniques, we'll going to see, because most of these molecular methods they are based on these common techniques, and all these techniques that we are going to study, they are based on PCR and electrophoresis. So PCR is a main theme or main tool used in genomic as well as metagenomic analysis. So let's understand PCR technique before going to actual techniques. So PCR is also included as a part of metagenomic analysis in your syllabus. So let's discuss this. So PCR, that is abbreviated as PCR, and its full form is polymerase chain reaction. Actually, it is an artificial replication or in vitro replication. Okay, by using PCR or polymerase chain reaction, we can amplify or we can generate desired quantity or many copies of desired gene. In this picture, you can see that there are three different genes are indicated with three different colors, and the gene of interest, whatever gene that you are interested, you can amplify that specific gene by using this technique. So this is the landmark discovery in the field of molecular biology and genomic and metagenomic studies. So it is the first and the most basic step utilized in all these studies, and most of the techniques that we are going to study, these are based on this PCR, and some of the techniques that are related to PCR, and they are modified version of that PCR technique. So polymerase chain reaction makes it possible to create more than billions copies of given region of DNA, and it is referred to as a target DNA in matter of hours. Okay, so we can copy target DNA or desired sequences of nucleotides. So by using PCR, we can generate enormous copies of specific genes or specific nucleotide sequence of our interest, and it is in vitro amplification of DNA, or we can say that it is in vitro replication. Okay, in normal replication the entire genome get copied, but here specific portion of DNA or specific genes, specific sequences, that can be copied in vitro or in artificial condition. So the techniques used in PCR polymerase chain reaction start with double stranded DNA molecule that serve as a template. So these are the ingredients that are required to carry out polymerase chain reaction, and the instrument that is used to carry out this reaction is known as thermal cycler. Okay, the instrument that is used to carry out these reactions, it is known as thermal cycler, and these are the basic ingredients that are needed to carry out PCR reaction. It requires double stranded DNA which serve as a template from which more than billion identical copies of target DNA can be produced. So the portion that we are going to, or that we are interested in its amplification, that is known as template DNA, and usually it is double stranded DNA. So this double stranded DNA, this contains target DNA and serves as a template for DNA synthesis. Then Taq polymerase, Taq is abbreviation, and it is Taq polymerase. It is high temperature dependent or heat stable DNA polymerase, and it is from thermophilic bacteria, that is Thermus aquaticus. That's why Taq is abbreviated. So this is the main heart of the polymerase chain reaction. Nowadays various kinds of polymerase they are invented and they are routinely used, but this was the first enzyme, that is Taq polymerase, and that is the heat stable polymerase, that is isolated from thermophilic bacteria, that is Thermus aquaticus. It can stable up to 80 to 90 degree. Then primers. We know that in case of normal replication, primers are required, and in that normal replication, RNA molecules they serve as a primers, and here in case of primers, short DNA molecules chosen by researchers determine portion of template DNA that is amplified. So primers, actually these are synthetic oligonucleotides that are artificially prepared, and to design primers we should know the prior knowledge of sequence that has to be amplified or that has to be means generated through PCR products. Okay, so if you want to design primer, we should know sequence detail regarding the gene or the nucleotide sequence that we want to amplify through PCR or polymerase chain reaction. Then deoxynucleotides. So each of the 4 deoxynucleotides used in DNA synthesis, they are DATP, DGTP, DCTP and DTTP. So all these are sources for nitrogen bases. Okay, so once primer they get bind to specific region, so primers they are so designed that they can exactly binds to the start and to the end of that particular gene or particular DNA sequences that we are interested in. So this is the figure in which the process is mentioned here. So actually the process of polymerase chain reaction, it operates in cycles, and 3 cycles are there. So first we have to take double stranded DNA as a template, means the segment or gene that we are interested in, that we want to amplify, that is known as template, and it is always double stranded DNA, or it is sometimes called as target DNA. Then first that double stranded DNA gets separated by denaturing that double stranded DNA. Okay, so that DNA containing mixture or target DNA is heated up to 94 degrees Celsius. At that temperature, both strand they get completely separate from each other. Okay, you can see the separated strand. Once that both strand they get separated from each other, they get cooled down up to 50 to 60 degrees Celsius. Okay, after cooling, primers are added. Now primers they bind to the specific locations or proper locations from the start to end of the gene. Okay, once that primer bind, then DNTPs they are added, and again after adding primers, the temperature get increased up to 72 degrees Celsius, because this polymerase is heat stable polymerase, so it requires high temperature. And after adding that DNTPs or dinucleotides, the synthesis reaction takes place. So in one cycle, the target DNA it get copied, it get exactly copied, and 2 copies are produced. Okay, these are products. So this cycle is repeated as many times, and within a short period of time we can get millions of copies of desired sequences or desired genes. Okay, so these are the first cycle product. Then once again denaturation is carried out, then DNA synthesis is carried out, then all products formed, they are carried for second cycle products. In this way, within a shorter period of time, lots of billions or millions of copies of DNA or genes they are generated. So this is how PCR, polymerase chain reaction, it get occurs. After forming or amplification of these desired sequences or genes, they need to be separated, and for the separation technique, agar gel electrophoresis is the most widely used technique is used to separate these amplified products. Okay, so agar gel electrophoresis, you are all familiar with that electrophoresis is the techniques that separates molecules, example proteins and DNA, on the basis of their molecular weight as well as size and shape. In case of DNA, agar gel electrophoresis is used, and electrophoresis machine is shown in this figure, and the process is depicted. In that, you can see the samples are added to wells in the gel. So gel that is used is specific for specific molecules that has to be separated. For proteins, the gel is different. For DNA, gel is different. Okay, so first gel is prepared, then it is poured in that electrophoresis machine, and it is connected to some power supply. Okay, because molecules, whatever protein or DNA, their movement is based upon electric field that is generated through external power supply, and in case in presence of that applied electric field, that molecules move from their opposite charges. Here DNA, as it contains negative charge, so it is loaded at negative side, so it moves towards positive sides, and we get separated bands of each fragment as per their length, and we get different band and we get different patterns. And to visualize that bands, different stains are used, and even we can track the movement of that DNA or samples by using some other stuff or the dye. This is how electrophoresis is carried out. So first samples they are added to wells in a gel, and the DNA moves through the gel between the spaces that are created in that gel, and iron fragments they are showed in the triangle of gel matrix, whereas the short fragments they move more quickly. So as we know that shorter fragments they will move faster as compared to larger fragments, and fragments that are generated through any kind of processes and or mostly they are the PCR products, so they are of varying length. So DNA gets separated on the basis of their varying fragment length. So this is how electrophoresis is carried out. So these two main techniques, they are the basic and the most important techniques used in this field of metagenomics as well as genomics and study of microbial diversity. So all these techniques that we are going to study in coming lectures, they are based on these both of these techniques, or sometimes they are modified versions of these basic techniques. Okay, so first as we have discussed in first slide, that is DNA reassociation kinetics. So this is the first technique that is based on DNA hybridization, and as we have already discussed that the extent of nucleotide sequenceability between two organisms can be determined by measuring how completely single strand of their DNA hybridized to one another. Okay, so simply if you want to identify particular bacteria or particular microorganism, the basic and most commonly used approach is that you have to just isolate some specific segment of DNA, say for example 16S rRNA coding gene, and you have to match that gene with another gene that code for the same RNA molecule but from known species. and if this DNA is hybridized due to their sequence homology, then we can identify uh, that which type of microbes is there or which type of microbial community is there. So by using this hybridization principle, we can use different kinds of DNA sequences, or we can use different kinds of genes for hybridization. And the main theme behind this hybridization is complementary base pairing between two different single stranded DNA molecules due to their homology in their base pair sequences. And the extent of hybridization reflects the degree of sequence similarity. So two bacterial strains that show at least 70% similarity are generally considered to be the members of same species. If there are two different kinds of sequences that are generated from two unknown bacteria, or one sequence is from known bacteria and other sequence is from unknown bacteria, if you match there, if after joining or after hybridization, if their hybridization percentage is more than 70 or almost 70, then you can say that both of these microbes, they belong to same species. So this is the double stranded DNA structure. In that you can see that there are two strands, one strand running in 5 prime to 3 prime and another running in 3 prime to 5 prime. So both these strands, they are antiparallel and they are joined by normal Watson-Crick base pairing. So normally base pairing is occurs between thymine and adenine, or adenine and thymine, and both the nucleotide, that is A and T, they are joined with two hydrogen bonds. As compared to A and T, G and C, that is cytosine and guanine, they are joined together with three hydrogen bonds. So this is the picture that shows DNA denaturation as well as renaturation kinetics. Okay. So it is normal property of double stranded DNA is that if you provide temperature, so that DNA, after gaining that temperature, it gets started to melt. Okay. So it gets started to denature. Okay. So if you provide temperature or if you provide heat to that DNA, after some time it gets started to denature, and at a point it get completely denatured, means the two strand, they get completely separated from each other. So that condition is known as complete denaturation. Okay. And the temperature at which both of these DNA strand, they get completely separated from each other, that temperature is known as melting temperature. Okay. So this renaturation and denaturation, they are operated in cycles. If you provide heat, if you provide temperature, the DNA get denatured, it get melted, and if you allow to, if you reduce the temperature, if you cool down the same uh, conditions, then the DNA will again renature, they will again form normal base pairing. So this basic principle is used to hybridize different kinds of DNA from different species to identify microbes. Okay. So the result of DNA reassociation kinetic experiment is the length of time it takes for mixed pool of single stranded nucleic acid to hybridize. Now this renaturation as well as denaturation, it depends upon time, means how much time it takes for particular DNA molecule to complete denature, and again it depends upon base sequences and concentration of particular bases. Now most of the denaturation and reassociation, they are based on GC content. Okay. We know that G and C, that is guanine and cytosine, they are joined together with three hydrogen bonds, and A and T, they are joined together by two hydrogen bonds. So if in a particular DNA molecule, if the percentage of GC base pair is more, then it will take more time to melt that particular DNA, as there is more energy is needed to break that three hydrogen bonds as compared to two hydrogen bonds that are present in AT. So this renaturation and denaturation is depend upon GC content, and how much time that particular DNA molecule takes to complete denature is depend upon their base sequences or base content. So the length of time is proportional to concentration of complementary sequence that is present in particular gene pool, and the method produces quantitative measure of heterogeneity in a sample of DNA pulled from various sources. So if you isolate and extract double stranded DNA sample from various microbial uh, sources or from directly from environmental samples, and if you check their denaturation as well as the denaturation profile, then you will find that some DNA they get melted within a shorter period of time, and some DNA they get melted after long period of time. Okay. So this basic principle of hybridization is utilized for various kinds of technique, and that this is the curve that shows a DNA melting curve, and the relative absorbance at 260 nanometer in spectrophotometer is recorded. So suppose you have double stranded DNA sample, and as you are heated, as you provide heat to that particular DNA sample, and after successive intervals if you take OD, so that OD will suddenly OD will increase as the melting temperature get increased due to exposure of two strands. Means जसा जसा DNA मेल्ट होईल तसे जसे दोन स्टँड सेपरेट होईल तसे तसे त्यांच्यातले नायट्रोजन बेसेस एक्सपोज होतील आणि त्याचा ॲब्सॉर्बन्स हा वाढत जाईल. ओके. फायनली एक असं टेम्परेचर येतं की ज्या टेम्परेचरला दोघी स्टँड कम्प्लिटली एकमेकांपासून वेगळे होतात, कम्प्लीट सेपरेट होतात, त्याला म्हणतात कम्प्लीट डिनॅच्युरेशन और कम्प्लीट सेपरेशन, आणि त्या पर्टिक्युलर टेम्परेचरला म्हणतात मेल्टिंग टेम्परेचर. आता हे मेल्टिंग टेम्परेचर स्पेसिफिक DNAच्या सिक्वेन्ससाठी वेगवेगळे असतं. इफ यू अनालाइज सेम जीन फ्रॉम डिफरंट मायक्रोब्स, then you will find that melting temperature for that same gene is different for different microbes because they contain different nitrogenous bases, or their GC content or AT percentages vary among different genes. Okay. So based on this technique, or based on this principle of renaturation and denaturation, the first technique that is used is GC content analysis, and the GC content is often measured by determining temperature at which double stranded DNA denatures or melt. So first thing is that in this technique, so temperature is determined, which temperature, at that temperature the double stranded DNA completely denatures or melts. Suppose in this figure the particular melting temperature is almost 85 degrees Celsius, and this is an example. So first that temperature is determined, then DNA has high GC content. As I told you earlier before that the melting temperature and melting time, again it depends upon the GC content and AT content of that particular DNA sequence or particular DNA molecule. If that DNA contains high percentage of GC base pairs, then definitely it will take more time as it contains 3 hydrogen bonds. So to break individual hydrogen bonds, more energy will needed, and higher the GC content, higher the temperature and higher the time that it needed to completely separate two strands from each other. As compared to vice versa, if the GC content of that particular DNA sequence or particular DNA molecule is low, then it will take lower time to complete to melt that DNA or to separate both of these strands. Okay. So if GC content is low, obviously AT content will be more, and if the GC content is high, obviously the AT content will be low. So the temperature at which double stranded DNA melts can be determined by measuring absorbance, and it is recorded, and finally the maximum absorbance that shows the reading which shows maximum absorbance at 260 nanometer, and that point is considered as an completely melted DNA or completely denatured DNA. So if you compare the GC content from different microorganisms, so you will find that this GC content profile is different for different kinds of microbes, and that is the basic things behind identification based on this particular phenomenon. So if the GC content of two organisms differs by more than a small percentage, it cannot be closely related. And similarly, of the base composition, however, it is necessarily mean that organism is related. So based on this means a similarity of base composition does not necessarily means that the organism is related, because the nucleotide sequences and genome size could differ greatly. So basic principle behind this technique is that GC content could be used to analyze microbes or microbial communities. Here an example is given, we have already discussed, but still I am repeating. Two organisms are mentioned in this particular figure, and in that the left side organism, that is organism 1, it is highlighted with green color, and organism 2, it is highlighted with red color. Now DNA or genomic DNA is extracted from both of these organisms. Okay, then the green organism that is indicated with green color, the DNA isolated from that green color organism is labeled with some probe. Okay, so that DNA, green color DNA, is labeled with some probe, and that red color DNA is not, it is from unknown. ओके, समजा हे दोन ऑर्गॅनिझम आहेत, त्याच्यापैकी ऑर्गॅनिझम 1 जो आहे ग्रीन कलरने दाखवलेला तो कम्प्लिटली नोन आहे, त्याचा सिक्वेन्स कम्प्लिटली नोन आहे, तो आपल्याला माहिती आहे हा कुठल्या स्पेसिसचा आहे. दुसरा जो ऑर्गॅनिझम आहे जो रेड कलरमध्ये दाखवलेला आहे तो आपल्याला आयडेंटिफाय करायचा आहे. मग आपण काय करणार की हा जो नोन ऑर्गॅनिझम आहे याचा काही डीएनएचा भाग आणि त्या अननोन ऑर्गॅनिझमचा डीएनएचा भाग हे दोघी आपण मिक्स करणार. दोघी मिक्स केल्यानंतर काय होईल की जो नोन ऑर्गॅनिझम आहे त्याच्या डीएनएला आपण टॅग केलेलं आहे, त्याला आपण प्रोब लावलेला आहे. प्रोब का लावला, कारण हे दोघी जेव्हा एकत्र येतील, हे दोघी जेव्हा हायब्रिडाइज होतील तेव्हा हे हायब्रिडाइज झाल्याचं काहीतरी एक इंडिकेशन पाहिजे, काहीतरी मार्किंग पाहिजे, म्हणून त्याला आपण प्रोब अटॅच केला आहे. आता दोघांचे 4-4 पीस आपण डीएनए घेतले, बरोबर, त्याला हीट मेल्ट केलं, ते त्या दोघांचे स्टँड सेपरेट झाले आणि त्यांना दोघांना मिक्स करून आपण त्याला हायब्रिडाइज होऊ दिलं पुन्हा कूल करून. आता त्याच्यामध्ये असं होईल, तुम्ही बघा बी पार्टमध्ये एक फिगर दाखवली, त्याच्यामध्ये फक्त दोघांचे एक स्टँड हे हायब्रिडाइज झाले आहेत. एक ग्रीन आणि एक रेडमध्ये जो दिसतोय तो कम्प्लीट हायब्रिड झाला आहे आणि उरलेले 3 स्टँड हे सेपरेट आहेत रेडवाल्या डीएनएचे. याच्यावरून आपल्याला काय लक्षात येतं की एक्सटेंट ऑफ हायब्रिडायझेशन किती आहे. 4 डीएनएचे 4 जरी हायब्रिडाइज झाले असते म्हणजे काय झालं असतं की हा 100% मॅच आहे. 2 डीएनए हायब्रिडाइज झाले असते म्हणजे काय की 50% मॅच आहे. 3 झाले असते म्हणजे काय 75% मॅच आहे आणि 1 झाला म्हणजे काय की 25% मॅच आहे. ओके, सो अशा पद्धतीने जेवढं पर्सेंटेज मॅच होईल त्याच्यावरनं आपण हा जनरामध्ये की याचा जनरा आहे की याची फॅमिली आहे की किंवा एक स्पेसिसचा आहे त्याच्यावरून आपण हे प्रेडिक्ट करू शकतो. आता इथं फक्त 25% मॅच आहे, त्याच्यामुळे हा आपण असं म्हणू शकतो की दे बिलॉंग्स टू डिफरंट जनरा. इफ दे आर match between 75 to 25%, so we can say that they belongs to same genus but different species. And if they can hybridize or they can match from 100 to 75 to 100%, then we can say that both these organisms they belongs to same species. So hybridization हे basic theme वापरून हे we can compare or we can identify unknown microorganism or unknown bacteria. So this is the technique how we can use hybridization principle to identify microbes. So आता ह्या एक्सपेरिमेंटनुसार आता 2 स्पेसिस आहेत, शिगेला आणि ईस्टर्शिया. जर त्यांना आपण बायोकेमिकली किंवा नॉर्मल कल्चर मेथडने जर आपण त्यांना टेस्ट केलं तर ते डिफरंट आहेत बायोकेमिकल आणि मॉर्फोलॉजिकल फीचरनुसार. पण जर तुम्ही हे प्रिन्सिपल वापरून जर तुम्ही त्यांना आयडेंटिफाय केलं, ॲनालाइज केलं तर तुम्हाला ते असं कळेल की हे दोघी एका स्पेसिसचे. ओके, सो दिस इज हाऊ बायोकेमिकल टेस्ट दे आर डिफरंट or morphological feature they are different and the molecular based identification is different. Okay, so those organisms which are previously considered to be different species but actually they belong to same species, they are belong to family Enterobacteria. Okay, the chimpanzees and humans, if you compare their DNA, they are 99% similar. So this is how we can use this hybridization principle to identify different kinds of microbes or microbial communities. So remaining part of this lecture will continue in next lecture. Thanks.